this thing happened and you're profoundly hurt. You may be profoundly violated. You may be profoundly betrayed.
Yeah.
And to really be with that, to witness it, to have it heard, to have it potentially move through the body, those things take time. Healing takes time, and I think we all want it to be much easier than it is.
Hi, I'm Katie.
And I'm Diane.
15 years ago, we met in rehab.
And we've been besties ever since.
We've both worked hard at healing our addictions.
And we've gone on to build meaningful lives.
I'm a licensed therapist and a yoga instructor.
And I'm an embodiment coach and tantra healer.
When we get together, our conversations can get intense.
But they're always lively and full of surprises.
Yes!
And no topic is off limits.
And that's our show.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of We Can Relate. Today's topic?
Forgiveness.
Ooh. Yeah, There's a lot out there on forgiveness. And actually the etymology of the word stems from the idea of to give away or to give up or release. So forgiveness really is about, I would say, letting go, but I would say more than that, moving through. It's a process of moving through.
What was the first thing you said? Is that because I heard the release? What was the first thing?
To give away or give up.
Okay, so that's interesting because when I hear that, I think, okay, it's letting go without giving yourself away. That's what comes up for me.
Beautiful.
It's like, how can I, release? I call it releasing with love, like from a full heart, like getting to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to let this go from myself as opposed to overarching, origamiing myself, self-abandoning, self-betraying. So I love that.
Did we want to hop into the stories to start? You had a story to share.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different ones. Like, we'll be interested to hear, because forgiveness is such a theme in life of, these mini, micro, and macro aggressions, like of these infringements that happen to us throughout our life. And it's, for me, the biggest ones that came up were stuff around family, particularly family of origin stuff, not getting what I needed as a child, and then growing up, individuating in like the anger that came from the pain of what wasn't there, and then having to come into a place of, do I forgive my parents for doing the best they could, recognizing they did the best they could, but still being angry. So there was a lot of gritty in there. Other ones that came up for me of where forgiveness has been a big and very different, well, probably different process has been regarding trigger warning sexual assaults and how do I forgive? Whew.
Yeah, that's really tough.
That's a big one. And then the third would be, without not even necessarily needing to get into specific stories, but a third one that came up was when I've had an amendment or an amends to make and apologized sincerely for a wrong that I'd done, and I've been given forgiveness at times, and there have been times when I haven't, and having to be okay because I'm not owed forgiveness, and we don't owe forgiveness.
No, and I love what you just said, Diane, because I think one thing we found yet again when we were kind of doing a little bit of research on forgiveness is how much there is a pressure from the collective and from the world that you should just forgive, or you need to get to forgiveness. And it's sort of like, if you don't, there's that quote, and I wrote it down, that it's kind of a famous one, and it talks about unforgiveness or resentment is drinking poison waiting for the other person to die. And while yes, there's truth to that, and it's a well-known quote, it doesn't encapsulate the process of forgiving. That I think there's so much spiritual bypass that people say, oh, I forgave them and it was for me. But did you actually get to that core, move that through, and get to a place where you actually feel neutral? You've truly gotten to a place where you feel neutral or even loving, but that you've, that's to me what forgiveness truly is. It's not just saying it, it's a felt experience.
Yeah, there's no longer that when it comes into my field, remembering this person or this experience, I'm no longer hijacked by a spike of something inwardly where there's still that charge. I like that neutralized, and it's become more alkaline, and this idea of you're drinking the poison. And it's like, when it comes to forgiveness, I like thinking of it almost like one gets to hold on to not forgiving, or the anger, the whatever emotions are around this experience of feeling betrayed, or the boundaries have been crossed, whatever.
Violated.
Violated. Holding on to whatever feelings are there, or it being in that process, is on one's own timeline.
That's right.
Anyone that says you should just get over it. There's a dismissal. It's encouraging further violation.
Yeah,
really.
it is.
It's by just saying, oh, you should. If anyone puts a should your way, red alert, red flag. That's a red flag parade. If I hear a should, I immediately kind of prickle, because you should just be over it by now, etc. It's like, no, your process is your process. Your timeline is your timeline. You've already been violated. You're holding on to this, like,
let yourself have that space. And one thing I always liked from the 12-step groups, and this is where I heard it anyway, is stop shoulding on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so true, because the should, well, you said it really well. It's just it doesn't do anything to further your process.
Yeah. And holding on and choosing not to engage with the spike or whatever charge and emotions might be around a particular person or event or trigger is one thing. Like, I like to think, does this still serve me? Does my relationship to this thing, am I in a place where I'm served by it, or is it harming me? And if it's harming me, or it is like a poison inside and there's a lot of acid, okay, maybe it's time. How can I create more spaciousness around it? And it certainly isn't by saying I should just be over it and self-dismissing, self-abandoning. Right. It's, okay, this isn't serving me. There's a lot of tightness and tension around here. I'm feeling bottlenecked or constricted around it. How can I start working my own relationship with this thing?
With this event, this hurt.
In a way that I can come to peace with it. All right, hi everyone, camera died, jumping back in. So it's creating spaciousness to come to a place of greater peace with the relationship to the experience. And that's for oneself. It's not about creating peace for the other. They get to be uncomfortable. If you need time for yourself in your process and they're uncomfortable with that, the other, guess what, that gets to be okay, because this is about you choosing you.
That's right. Yeah. I had written down in my notes before that forgiveness doesn't mean you give access to yourself. And I think that's really true with whatever's hurt you. You don't have to offer more. And in fact, when you find yourself doing that, that can be a trauma response. I was thinking something that bothered me the other day was I was on Facebook, and a picture of a guy that used to tease me, bully me, I don't know, however you want to say it, came up. And he was a smart guy, and I just remember, and his sisters too, and I just remember anytime I was around them, they always found a way to make me feel like crap. And and I saw his face, and he's sitting there smiling, and I had feelings come up of like, man, why were you that way? Like, I know kids tease, obviously, because I went through that, but also not all of us did. I don't ever recall harassing someone or bullying someone, and maybe I did, but there are kids and people who really did that. And I've come into forgiveness because with that stuff, because I've processed it so much, but I've spent years processing it, and even that didn't take away some feelings of like, ouch, that hurt back when you did that. But I think what's different now for me was like seeing his face. I was kind of like, I trust and like to imagine that you have changed and that you've grown as a person and a man, and you're not that same person. And that gave me some peace, I think, too. Just knowing that we evolve, that you can't, you can hold on to things if I had never processed those things, I would still be harboring resentments. But it's like I really see now that when someone does damage to you, usually they are damaged or they've had damage done. Yeah.
Well, and I think about it when I look back and I see, you know, on social media, people that made life painful for me back in the day, bullies during my more formative years. It's like there's still little wins, because even being in a place where it's pretty neutral now, I don't feel like it's a trauma or anything like that. I don't feel the hijack, but there's still some tenderness there because it hurt. And being able to look at them and be like, what was going on for you, like at the time? Because it's that concept of hurt people. Yeah. Which, yes,
it's so true.
And there can be reasons why people do things, but that doesn't make them excusable.
That's right.
Like, reasons aren't necessarily excuses. And I loved what you said about accessibility. It's like, even if I get to a place where I've forgiven, that doesn't necessarily mean if it's a relationship, we're going to reconcile. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's excused. I excuse what happened, or that I deny or forget, or I make it permissible. And I know for me, something that the whole message of good people forgive. Yeah. It's a religious concept. Yeah. It's a spiritual, like, good people forgive. But okay, so then am I bad if I don't feel forgiveness and benevolence in my heart to this person that did XYZ that was truly damaging and harmful and destructive to me?
And that's actually, I love that you're bringing this up, because that was a question I had for you, because it's a living question for me, which is, do you think we can forgive people if we are not completely through the feelings? Like Clarissa Pinkola Estes has a great quote, which I'll bring in about this after. Yeah, she's so amazing. But I'm not sure. Like, the answer for me is I'm not sure, because I really think otherwise it's spiritual bypass, or it's just like it's mouth service, lip service. But like, what do you think?
I love that. And what do you think? Tell us. Repeat the question if you will.
Yeah. Do you all think that you can that you can forgive if you're still harboring a lot of feelings about it that are resentment, or you're still feeling angry, or you're still feeling super hurt, confused, any of those? Can you really say that you've forgiven if that's alive in you? And I think it might be an individual answer. Because for me, I think want to get through all of that to where I really, like, when I saw this guy, I had those feelings come up, but then I felt a sense of compassion for who we all were back in high school and how hard high school is, and everyone trying to find their clique and trying to fit in, and even the popular kids had their own stuff.
Well, yeah. So your question, if I'm rephrasing it or interpreting it correctly, was, can one be in a place of forgiveness or completion around, like, release around something, if the feelings aren't totally processed or clear? And yeah, I think of it like an onion, because what comes up for me, and when you asked that, I was thinking, okay, one of the biggest charges that I've struggled with regarding a forgiveness scenario is with a sexual assault experience. And without getting super into details, and just even feeling, there's still stuff here in the body, right? Like,
yes.
This is me just
recentering.
Yeah, being with, like, this is a practice that I do when the rises. It's like, okay, hold on to myself. Yes. So I think of it like an onion, in the sense that when it first happened, I wasn't even in touch with my anger yet, let alone the need to forgive. I had to get to that point first. But then when the anger came, it was this tsunami of, like, rage and raw emotion. And then I worked with that very privately, because there was a lot of shame in it, and I dealt with it in that way. And I thought I was good. I thought I was at a place of completion around that, like, all right. Yeah. And it had been quite some time. Then I went into a somatic training practice where I learned new techniques for how to really dive deep into the unconscious held wisdom of the body, unconscious experience of the body. And I had no idea there was still a whole iceberg of rage and violation sensations and feelings buried in my body that I hadn't been aware of. And so it brought this whole new surge, like a I'm thinking Yosemite, like a volcano, And it was really scary.
Yeah.
I was very bewildered that I thought I was pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody had asked me about it,
I don't have feelings about it.
Like, oh yeah, that happened. It wasn't okay, but okay.
Yeah.
But then when I really dug deeper, it was there still. Okay. Then I processed that next layer and shed that and was like, okay, it feels good to get out of the body system. Like, I think I'm good and processed around this. And then I got about another year-ish plus after that, I found out that this person has continued to sexually assault people and is still behaving in predatory ways. And that brought up a whole new surge of feelings, triggers, all of this chaos, but not to the same, to a different, it was just different. And so it's these different petals on the flower, layers of the onion, and it's like, each time it's like circling the mountain or a new point on the trail of my relationship to this experience, this person, this memory, and all the stuff around it.
And even to forgiveness itself, that it sounds like you're talking about just the process of how feelings can come back, and until they're, I guess my bias would be that until they're really felt all the way through, I don't know that it's pure forgiveness, whatever that might mean. But and this leads me to the quote that I wanted to bring in by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, because I think it's kind of speaking to what I'm trying to say, but not as well as she does.
She writes one of my favorite books, Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Yes, such a great book.
About rewilding, and it's great, really great book.
Really great book.
She's incredible.
She says, how does one know if she has forgiven? You tend to feel sorrow over the circumstance instead of rage. You tend to feel sorry for the person rather than angry with him. You tend to have nothing left to say about it all. And it's so powerful. You have nothing left to say about it. And I mean, I think by her definition, we could say you're not in forgiveness because you have so much more to say.
Right.
And that makes sense to me, because this is one of the things I wanted to bring in, which is that I think we are in a culture and in a society that doesn't want to sit with the feelings. And this theme will come up in many episodes, and certainly I have my own resistance to that I work on. But we would rather say, oh, I forgive them because it's just going to make me, I'll be drinking the poison, rather than actually sit with the fact that this thing happened and you're profoundly hurt. You may be profoundly violated. You may be profoundly betrayed.
Yeah.
And to really be with that, to witness it, to have it heard, to have it potentially move through the body, those things take time. Healing takes time, and I think we all want it to be much easier than it is.
And tidier.
And like, oh, I could just change my thought and I can just go and jump into another vibration and let me do that. And I'm not saying one could never do that, but the real work, I'm sorry, to me, sorry, not sorry, is that we have to actually be with the difficult feelings.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to run around in all these different ways and avoid them.
Yeah.
So once we do that and we get to that place where, there's nothing left to say here. And I got to that with many instances in my life where it's just like you almost get to a place of compassion even, but not always. But it's just,
and you don't have to.
And you don't have to.
And you don't have to.
And you don't have to. But taking the pressure off to get there.
Yeah, you can't rush your healing.
No.
By nature, it can't be done. And it's, being aware of, I really feel that forgiveness is not a requisite for your healing. It's not a requisite for healing. I fundamentally reject that. It really is. This process is about, I think that coming to forgiveness is around finding more spaciousness, more inner peace, and whatever it takes to get there is the right path for it. And it's not about shoving, repressing, or following a rule book or being above it somehow. It's interesting, as you were reading that quote, it came through of, I haven't forgiven this person that assaulted me. And then this like feeling came up of like feeling bad, or like it bothers me because I want to be regulated around these things. But I've noticed that as I'm even feeling into it, or as it's coming up, I'm like, oh, there's still dysregulation around this for me. I still have a little tremor in my hand, and I don't forgive him yet. And there's a part of me that, even with as much wisdom as there might be here, kind of wishes I do, but I'm not there yet.
This is a perfect example, because there we can see, all of us can see the instinct she has. There's a part of her that has this little instinct that wants to let's just forgive him because I want to be this, she wants to be this loving person. She is a loving person. Yeah. And she's also someone who's had this horrible experience that has feelings about it, those feelings are completely valid. And so I would ask you all to ask yourselves, in terms of forgiveness and how you forgive, what is your experience with that? Because my experience is that I don't forgive until I move it through. And I'm just repeating myself at this point.
But I think, and what I'm bringing in is really compassion for, there's cycles of that. Like, okay, it's a moving through. Oh, there's a new layer of something to move through around this, and more, until the ripple, the intensity, the dysregulation reduces and reduces, and I feel more secure within myself. And I really, it's really interesting. Being a good person doesn't necessarily mean being peace, love, and good vibrations. It's that whole toxic positivity thing. And,
that's right.
And it's okay to be in the ick. That's what we stand for. It's just interesting noticing, like, but I don't want to be in the ick. And
I know. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's you being with the uncomfortable feeling.
Well, and we just did a really amazing episode on anger. And one of my tips and tools, or one of the things I'd like to bring in, is what I was going to say to you all, and what I'm now going to say to myself as well, is not being in a place of forgiveness, still being dysregulated around something, means there's still anger, or it's not okay. It may never be okay, but there's still charge there that wants to be heard.
That's right.
And anger is sacred. It's human. It's protective. It's coming in. And so if there is this felt experience of, I don't forgive this person yet, and I'm not going to rush that to, as much as the capacity can be there, to, okay, what am I feeling? I'm angry, I'm sad, I feel betrayed, I'm whatever this is here. Okay, what does that need me to know? What do I need to feel more at ease around this? Like, I'm still angry, even just acknowledging that the anger is still there and has more to teach me about myself and boundaries. And so what is your non-forgiveness wanting you to know?
That's right. I think that's the same thing I would say, really, is how do we honor what the resentment, what the non-forgiveness has to tell us? How do we honor what it stands for? What is it a symbol of? I guarantee you it's not that you're a bad person because you didn't forgive.
Or because you're angry,
It's because there's feelings there that are valid. And some of us may never get to forgiveness, and I don't actually believe that necessarily means it's poisoning us.
Yeah.
I believe, and I think I'm just realizing this in real time now as we're talking about it, but I believe that there could be something that has happened that I don't forgive.
Yeah.
And can move on with my life and have a great life and not feel like I need to.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's my goal or my highest ideal, but I do think there are some things that are not forgivable.
Right.
Especially, and I think if we want to bring it back into the relational level in regards to our show, I think that is also dependent on what you're getting from the other person. So, or however this has happened. Like, if somebody is repentant, right? We're kind of using some religious language here, but
atoning, apologetic.
Yeah, but to me, and it's a genuine thing, and you feel that warms my heart. That's going to make me soften. But if that person is not, I don't know, even thinking of someone that's like a sociopath, I don't know if they need to be forgiven by me. I can leave that to something bigger, perhaps.
Yeah, I love that. Forgiveness doesn't, it doesn't have to be okay. It can be never okay, and still not, I'm moving into a place of no longer being disempowered by it in any way.
That's right.
And one of the things that came up for me as you were talking, I was thinking about, it took me a really long time to forgive my first boyfriend in my early 20s, who danced the line of sociopath. I never got an apology. I will never get an apology, malignant narcissist, etc. And there was so much about it that was not okay. And I also, I don't think about it anymore. There isn't that charge, but also I took so much, I learned and grew so much from that. And so one of my invitations and tips would be, if this situation still kind of has the hijack and feels disempowering, is there a way to start nurturing the relationship to what would it look like to feel and to take my power back in some way? Is it setting a boundary? Is it saying the thing? Is it writing something? Is it going no contact? Is it getting into therapy? How can I move from a place of the wounded feminine into my inner queen? For example, with that the sexual assault, like I grew immensely from that experience as a woman, and it's not about the relationship with him. I'm fine if I never speak to this person ever again, but it's how could it be alchemized or transmuted somehow in a way that maybe carries a meaning or growth, or like that can nurture the soil, the shadow.
And maybe through this process that Diane's talking about, maybe we don't have to try so hard to forgive. Maybe forgiveness will show up when it's ready.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's something that we could stop fighting to get there and just go, I'm gonna come to a space of allowing, and I'll be in my own process, and maybe that feeling will arrive.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a thought.
Yeah, and reminding, again, like mentioned in the beginning of the episode, you don't owe anyone your forgiveness if that's not where you are. And I would really encourage holding on to self. If somebody's like, well, just, if you love me, forgive me, or please, if that's not where you are, that it's okay to be like, yeah, I'm not there yet, or I'm working on having more forgiveness, or maybe you thought you were there. Whatever's true, instead of that giving of self away, like that in the etymology, it's okay, that's not where I'm at right now. And that gets to be okay.
It gets to be okay.
That gets to be okay. And one thing that came up, and I actually think is really an interesting, and this could be for another episode, or if maybe you have some quick thoughts on it. We're talking about the concept of giving forgiveness, but what about when it comes to getting forgiveness? If we have been the wrongdoer, and like I'd like to say, we don't owe forgiveness, and we're not owed forgiveness. But like, what does one do when we want forgiveness? Like, what the opposite side? What are your thoughts there?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I don't think we're owed forgiveness. I don't know that we're owed. I don't know that we're owed a lot in this life. Owed it's the word owed that kind of. But yeah, I mean, I think it's great when it's granted. But it's up to us if we feel like we need to be forgiven to, like you said before, make an amends, and then give that person the space to do with that what they will. But it's about us keeping our side of the street clean. And then the second piece would be to just make sure after you do that, or as you're doing that you're working to forgive yourself, because that's so much of it, right? Is that we can be non-forgiving with ourselves.
Yeah.
So if you can work on that also can, I think, release you.
Yeah, I like that. That's really beautiful. And we have, things in the work for an episode on apologies and making amends. But I think that's a really great concept of, the relationship to being forgiven, giving forgiveness. It's a dance, really.
That's right. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Oh, I think what was here was I shared a little bit, and it was my high school sweetheart back. I've talked about being vitriolic and chaotic in my younger years, just a wild child of chaos because I was so much inside. And I dated a really sweet boy, a sweet young man who was by all means good to me, and just a really good egg.
Good egg.
Yeah, and I wasn't in a place where I could recognize that, honor that, be available for that. I could not receive love. The capacity wasn't there, and I was not good to him. And like, it just was, and I still even, but
You still even what?
I think back and I just go,
You feel badly.
I feel he deserved, he was so well-meaning, and I had all this trauma, and I was just very much in a take state. And I had no idea. My unconscious was running the ship and dragging me everywhere. And I still feel sorry. And I found him on social media like 5 or 6 years ago. He's married now. It looks happy. Who knows? But
who knows?
I was like, oh, wow. And I wrote a really lovely, organized, just thoughtful, sincere apology of, you were so good to me. It was a beautiful experience. Thank you. I'm sorry. I hope life has been so good to you. Mm-hmm. Wasn't trying to take it, but just, I'm sorry for what I couldn't be.
A genuine apology.
Yeah, and I didn't hear anything back, and I saw the checks that had been read.
Yeah.
And having to be okay with that.
Right.
No, he doesn't owe me anything.
No.
Maybe it's so old news. He's like, what? Whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe there's nothing there. Maybe he's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't forgive you. I never will.
No. I just, as you're saying this, I'm thinking of, I had a friend, same thing, where there were some reasons why the friendship ended that at the time I never told her, because I did not know how to use my voice at that time. Mm-hmm. And she was trying to reach me at different times, and I just ignored because I didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And I felt so betrayed by her. And so same thing, I found her on social media and sent her this apology, and she just never wrote back. And it's like, I now have to live with the fact that, I really blocked her. I cut her off, and that's not how I would have wanted to handle things. Like, if I could do it differently, I would do it differently. But, I hurt her. She hurt me, but I hurt her. Yeah. And she has the right to handle that how she wants to handle that. And so do you. Yeah,
and to keep that door closed. And also, I sometimes think these missteps are so teachable. Like, that felt really ick, that I was this way to this person, and I've never cheated on anyone ever since. That's for sure. Like, that's not aligned with my principles and values, and dancing in who I don't want to be and how the ways I don't want to live have helped shape the ways I do. And so even if there's pain around not getting the closure, because we're not owed the closure, the owing isn't there, we're not entitled to that. It's like, okay, what can I learn from this to at least make some type of meaning for myself in this journey?
Yeah.
So that would be the invitation, I think, from there. And I think that's it for now, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. Let us know how you deal with all this stuff.
Yeah. Where are you at in your processes of forgiveness?